Hello, everyone. Welcome to another awesome interview for the fifth annual, that's right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, fifth annual Corporate Hustle Virtual Summit. It's your host, Demishia Samuels, LinkedIn strategist, helping working professionals actually monetize their skill sets to build online brands and businesses. Y'all know what I tell y'all, corporate is stable but not loyal, and we prepare you for the betrayal here at Corporate Hustle University. So I'm excited. I have a corporate baddie with me today. I always like to bring you new and interesting conversations. Today's conversation is going to be about leadership, women in business, because regardless of where you're getting your money, it's about how you are showing up for your personal brand. And to me, from a distance, she has built a personal brand that is awesome, that I respect. We're always on like what they call bridges at our jobs together, and she will command the situation at hand to get what needs to be done. I do it on the IT side, but they call me in. I'm a home run hitter. But, when I hear her voice, I know things have went chaotic, and that means she has been come to lay down the law and to bring and restore things back. So without further ado, Flo, let the people know who you are, what you do, and what you're all about.
For sure. And thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited about what you're doing and congratulations on the fifth summit. That is a huge accomplishment, especially over the last, I don't know, crazy 3 years that we've had as a world. So yeah, my name is Flo LaBrado and I am a senior manager at T-Mobile. And I am one of the leaders in part of the organization called Frontline Systems Experience. Think a combination of product management, business analysis, and I've been with the company for a very long time, and I'm very excited about the work that I do, very passionate about leadership development, and helping people achieve, even if just slightly beyond what they thought they could. That is my passion. That's why I wake up every morning.
Awesome. And we know you started when you were like 12. So that means that's what you did it for a long time. You look great, you look
Long
good.
time.
So let's talk about it. How did you stumble upon the fact that you would be good or great at leading others or helping people find the leadership inside themselves?
Oh man, this was sort of almost like accidental, different things in my life that intersected before I realized that it would have a purpose. I remember when I was growing up, I studied art and I was very interested in psychology, things that at the time didn't seem to go together, but those were my two interests, art and psychology, and the way that people think and operate and behave and what motivates them and drives them. And then through several events, I ended up working in a company where I did not imagine that I was going to work in a company, and getting exposure to organizations operate and technology changed my perspective a little bit. I came to understand that organizations are, and the work of Akoff talks a lot about this, but organizations are a group of people that come together to pool their resources, to take some sort of resource and input and convert it into output that generates some kind of revenue that is redistributed to the people. The organization are the people. And so I came to see organizations as an opportunity for people to learn, to grow, to develop, to do the things that they want to achieve. And all these things combined, working in an organization, being interested in organizational health, psychology, and creativity, helped me realize that I can use my time working as a part of an organization to help people develop their own self leadership skills and also become leaders that influence other people so that ultimately we're lifting up everybody around us.
Ooh, I love that. That's very true, you guys. You see how you can be getting it inside and out. She talked about the transferable skills that she had that she never even realized could be utilized in corporate. So again, I tell you guys, what you're learning in corporate can be used in the digital space. What you're learning in the digital space can be learned in corporate, right? Just go where you are found of value, where people see your skill set of value. That is ultimately where you want to land up, is where my skill sets are valued, because that is where you'll get paid, right? So let's talk about, I always tell people there's a very distinct difference between a supervisor, a manager, and a leader, right?
Oh,
And I say
yes.
this because I have never been a manager, but very much so a leader. in my company, right? Versus we know some managers who don't lead, and we know some supervisors. There's different managers. So let's just talk about, if you can, just break down maybe your perspective on those three entities and, you know, your point of view for them.
Oh, that is so important. And I think all three roles of leader, manager, and supervisor are very important. They each serve an important purpose. So a supervisor is someone who oversees something, right? It could be people, it could be a process, but their job is to oversee. Um, and you know that's important. Sometimes, depending on the work that's happening, either in a small business or a large organization, some kind of supervision may be needed. I want to spend a little bit more time talking about management and leadership because those are very related but different things. And management is important, right? Without management, organizations and businesses and ideas will fall apart. So think of planning, organizing, figuring out, controlling. And by control, I don't mean controlling people, I mean controlling assets and revenue and debt and all of those things. Those are all very important activities that someone needs to do, management. But management is not necessarily about people, and organizations are about people. Management is important, but leadership is where people's abilities and skills and potential are unleashed. Leadership can be defined in so many ways, but leadership is about understanding what is it that we need to achieve, what is important to you, what is important to me. Let's work together through influence, right? Not through power exercised over someone else, but power shared with someone else to go achieve something in common. And it has to be for good. It cannot be for evil or for terrible things. And I completely agree with you, Demishia. Like the values are so important, right? Because as a leader, it is important that we understand what is someone else's values for the individual, what's important to the person, not just like what's important in relationship to the company or to the projects or whatever, but what is important to that individual. Is it their family? Is it making money? Is it having work where they develop deep expertise? Whatever it is, it's important to understand a person's values. And that way we can help encourage people to work in a way so that there's an overlap between the person's values and the organization to achieve wonderful things. And then someone can be proud of what they do. And that is leadership.
Yes, exactly. Like leadership should come and flow, and is about the people, right? I always tell people that when I think of my managers versus my supervisors that I've had, that my supervisor very much so, I agree with you, had a task that they were responsible for to get done. But my manager's job, I didn't see my managers elevate unless I elevated. So I realized that the manager's role was more so, or my leader managers, right? Especially when they went to people managers, that their job was to put me in the right place to shine. And if they did that really well, then they would be looked upon really well. So organizations that are built upon that usually have that. Now, I always tell my people, if you hate your job, don't just run the entrepreneurship. If you love your job, don't just stick around just because, right? Here's the thing. You need to make sure at all times you know where you're valued. But on top of that, most people leave organizations because of people, not because of money or benefits. So can you talk about how important the environment is to grow people, and to have like retention, or for people to be just purposeful in their jobs?
Absolutely. The environment is, going back to the organization being a group of people coming together to do something together, right? And then share the resources or the outcomes of that, the benefits of that organization. For that environment for that organization to thrive, meaning the people in that organization to thrive, the environment has to be one that is healthy. And that is, healthy can look, different depending on the situation, right? So, and this is where culture comes in, right? Understanding that what are the mission and the vision, right? And this applies whether to an organization or a hustle or a entrepreneurship, an organization that changes from becoming the hustle to becoming the primary focus, right? Understanding what is the vision and mission. What is the organization aiming for? And then what are the values of that organization? And how are we going to take care of the people? All of that stuff has to come together to create essentially a culture in which people can know what to expect and have room to be autonomous and creative and do work that they're very passionate about, right? Instead of being controlled. And there's a time and a place for command and control leadership, right? Maybe it's an organization that is very financially constrained or needs that extra bureaucracy, right? I prefer the opposite, right? Creating an environment where people feel valued, that they feel trusted, that they can go out and exercise their character and competence to go do amazing things for the company, but also for themselves.
Oh, I love that. And when I think about when you said other ones that might need that constraint, my husband's in the military. And of course, they have that at times, they will have that lockdown control, in war situations or in certain situations. But they do try to make sure that you're thriving as a person in the military because they understand that you are people now. Having said that, what are some trends in leadership that you see or have you seen over over your span of time? Like, what are some trends that you could think of that maybe, would be interesting to us, like you see people doing?
So I think an important trend, and this we can thank Gen Z for this, as a trend that we see is the acceleration in the change of expectations between people and in a company. People, especially Gen Z, expect something else than what we've seen in the past. They expect an organization to provide opportunities to go do very, very meaningful work, not just do work to check the list or just to be task oriented, but to do work that is important and makes a difference. Also, with that comes the expectation that an organization is going to provide opportunities for someone to grow and develop, not only to satisfy the company, but so the person can grow and take those skills and do something amazing, either with the company or another organization or on their own business. And that's a big change where before, think, 30, 40 years ago, the expectation was you join a company, you stay there for a long time, and then you retire and are taken care of. The expectation now, the contract is different, right? It's almost as if every individual, even if they're a corporate employee, every individual almost acts like a consultant, right? Where they exchange their skills and abilities with a company for resources, not just financial resources, but also training and development opportunities. And that's a really big shift. It can be perceived as that, Gen Z is less loyal to companies. It's not necessarily a disloyalty, but it's an awareness that our skills, abilities, intellectual property is ours, and we can exchange that. By that same token, that means that people have the opportunity to take, as you write about, what they learn, in a company and take those skills and do something else with it, right? So for example, if I work on a project for any organization, and in that project, I deliver the results for that company. But through that experience, I develop or strengthen my skills and abilities. Those skills and abilities are mine. They belong to me, right? So I can do with that whatever I please. I can decide to exchange my skills and abilities and time with another organization, or I can take that and do something on my own. And that is a huge, huge shift. And then, of course, we can't, we have to mention, virtual and remote work and hybrid work the expectations are different. We know that people are able to work more flexibly than we thought before. And that is something that is not going away.
No, it's not going away. It is definitely here to stay. I agree with you wholeheartedly that Gen Z was like something that I always believed, right? Like they were able to like as a whole do it though. But I always believe like, hey, no matter what the role is, I should be learning and growing. I don't care if I'm at the bottom of the company, the top of the company. What are you doing to make me grow and learn, right? And I always tell people like, take advantage of the training opportunity that you'll have, doing things in corporate, because I don't think one morning, if you're somebody who doesn't have good work ethic, that all of a sudden you're going to quit your job and have this perfect work ethic going on over here. And I always tell people, use a corporate job to train on people. Like I didn't learn systems and processes by practicing on my clients or something like that. I've already perfected that skill for, I would tell people, $1 billion industry. I know how to do processes and systems. So what would you prefer, me to just wake up one day and say, you know what? I want to do a processing system, that no, you would prefer that somebody else had already paid me to do these activities. So before I built my own framework and my own systems just for people to use. So that is always exciting. Let's talk about the flip side of leadership, right? Talk about you wake up and you're like giving a team or giving people that, let's say you don't get the energy, you don't get the vibes from them. You're like, these people is ridiculous. How, as a leader, do you not bury your personal feelings about people, but when your energy doesn't vibe with other people, how do you overcome that to still lead them?
Oh, that is so tough. That is so tough because again, we're talking about people here, right? And there's so much potential. There's so much potential that can be completely unleashed when we create teams that are diverse, right? And not just diverse having different people from different backgrounds and ethnicities and values at the table, but also inclusive, where everyone can be themselves and bring their best ideas without fear of being excluded. That's super important. The research shows that there is a very critical balance between creating diverse and inclusive teams, right, to maximize fresh ideas and innovation, right? But with the balance of minimizing unnecessary conflict. So there's a sweet spot of having teams where there are different perspectives and values reflected, but without the negative, the friction that can come from those differences. And to find that sweet spot is critical. But that said, what if as a leader, I'm struggling with someone that we have a different perspective and they're on my team? Or what if 2 or 3 people on my team are struggling because they have different values? And that's tough. I advise, like, first, always lead with empathy and vulnerability. Always lead with empathy and vulnerability, because it is going to be impossible to mend or heal a relationship if there isn't some extension of vulnerability in order to then empathize with the other person. I may not agree, but if I could at least see a little bit of what it might be like from their perspective, that's already some major growth. I think the second thing that's really important is to understand people's personal values, understanding what is important to that individual, what is important to them and to the other person, what is important to me, and let's look for the things that we have in common. It's not to diminish the differences, but to understand what are the things that we have in common and lean into that, right? To start to build team cohesion around, hey, what are we all about here? What do we have in common? What is important to us as people when we go to bed at night, not just as an employee, but as a human being? And the third thing is to then start to identify commonalities between the individual person's values and the organization's values or the team's values. Because at that point, people have a framework that is not just their own values, but the bigger picture that they can connect with. And as a result, we start to see, almost imagine this Venn diagram, right? Where we focus on the overlap of personal values, team values, and organization values and perform. And then if we run into friction in the future, we can be anchored by, like, hey, we have some trust built because we know each other a little bit better. We can empathize with each other. Let's resolve the conflict so we can produce and do the things that we want to do, and also celebrate the differences. And it is tricky. It takes some time to get there, but without vulnerability and empathy, it's a non-starter.
I love that. Yes. Find the common ground. Find the common ground. So as you guys, there's some people who like to escape corporate because they think that they're escaping the politics or whatever. But in actuality, people are people. So whether you are the CEO of your company or you're a person of one, you're going to have to interact with people. And so that's why I have Flo here, just to talk about leadership as a whole, because what I realized is I had to become a bigger person each and every, I always have to grow and develop in order to attract the people that I want to be my clients or whatever I want inside of my corporate job, that I have to become that bigger person. Having said that, you always have this balance in your head, like, do I stay? Do I go? What has kept you in your organization as long as it has?
Oh my gosh, that is excuse me, that is a really good question, because I want to be upfront that I worked in the same organization for a long time, right? But it hasn't been a passive decision. It's not that I stayed necessarily out of comfort, but it is important for me to periodically reevaluate. What is important to me at this part of my life, right? Reconnect with my values, what is important to me as a person, and use that as the lens through which I make decisions, including my career and where I work. And as long as my place of work and what is happening aligns, then I'm good to stay. However, I think it's important that I'm using all the time that I have here, not only to lead and support and benefit those around me, but also me. So I've, at the same time, I've used my time at this company to, for example, complete my master's degree in management and leadership with a concentration on organization development, to network and build relationships, to stay in touch with other people who have left the company, and also time, I'm spending time doing activities like this one, right? Connecting with other leaders and sharing and networking and sharing information and receiving information that can help me grow as a person. So the time that I'm with the company is very intentional. That said, I'm also, developing my own resources. For example, I have the opportunity to, outside of work, do career development coaching with others. And that's really important. And also connecting with other coaches, right? To learn from them and exchange resources. So the time that I spend here is very intentional. However, I do have not only a skill set, but a body of work that is my intellectual property that I can also take. And if I decide to go build my own business with the skills that I've learned through my years in corporate.
I love that. We're waiting for the book. I already know a great title. Call me. I know a good title for you. It'll be awesome. But yes, tell us some pet peeves that you have or misconceptions that people have about leadership that really you're like, I wish people would stop thinking that X, Y, Z.
So there are two that immediately come to mind. I think one is, and we already touched on this, is the assumption that leadership and management are the same thing, and they are not. They are not. And so I struggle with that. I think the sweet spot is both, and knowing when to lean more into management and when to focus more on leadership development, depending on the circumstances. Another one that I struggle with is to be very transparent is the referring to people as resources or human capital, because those are wonderful terms that we hear a lot in organization development and human resources and those industries, those practices. But people are people. We're not just resources like supplies, metal or money, right? And human capital sounds almost still like dehumanizing. So I think it's important to remember that people are people. And I'm gonna throw in a third too, is that we still have a lot of work to do in organizations, whether it is a small business with a team of 3 people or a large company with 100,000 people, to make sure that we're creating contexts where people feel welcomed. And it drives me crazy when we say oh, hey, we have a diverse team, or we have a woman in leadership, or whatever, but they still have artificial challenges that they shouldn't have to deal with. Those 3 things drive me absolutely crazy.
Oh, good ones. You know what? People are people first and foremost, and then all the other things that come about. I love that. And the artificial, yeah, yeah, that's very true. So let us know how we can stay in contact with you as you grow and you begin to give us these leadership tips online, because I'm going to speak it over you that I know that there's going to be Flo's tips on leadership coming for us. But let us know, where can we find you? Are you on Twitter? Are you on LinkedIn? Where can we find you?
Yeah, I'm very active on LinkedIn. I love to connect with people on LinkedIn, share resources, have good conversations, dialogue, even a debate a little bit if we need to. But you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm in there several times a day, every day. Absolutely love it. I love to connect with people from different fields, different backgrounds, exchange information. I'm here for all of that.
Okay, so we'll definitely put Flo's LinkedIn out here, and she'll screen the people who want to come and say hi. But let her know that you saw her on the Corporate Hustle Virtual Summit. Any last words you want to give us? Maybe something for us women in leadership, or anything like that. Any last words of encouragement that you want to share with the Corporate Hustle University's world?
Absolutely. I think it's really important for everyone to be true to themselves. It is important. The mental energy, emotional energy that we might spend trying to be somebody else or fit somebody else's mold or whatever is better spent being doing the things that we want to do, producing, right? So if we lead, understand what our values are, what our strengths are, and lead from that position, nothing but success.
Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for joining us for our 5th annual Corporate Hustle Virtual Summit. Flo is going to be the catalyst, I'm sure, for my inspiration to make sure that I have 2 tracks inside of the summit. One is for those who want to be better leaders in their actual 9-to-5s, want to grow and thrive. And then, of course, is those who want to use what they know in corporate to build their businesses, because that's what we ultimately are here. We believe that you can get the money inside or outside of corporate. You just need to go where you're valued. And so that is what we teach around here. I'm Demishia, that's Flo, and this has been another awesome interview for the Corporate Hustle Virtual Summit. We'll see